Madhava Kunja Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Praja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 12. Rahugana converses with Jadabharata. Texts 1 and 2. Text number 1. Rahugana Uvacha Namo Namakarana Vigrahaya Swarupa Tuchhikrita Vigrahaya Namo Avadhuta Dvijabandhulinga Niguda Nityanubhavaya Tubhyam Rahugana Uvacha Namo Namah Karana Vigrahaya Swarupa Tuchhikrita Vigrahaya Namo Avadhuta Dvijabandhulinga Niguda Nityanubhavaya Tubhyam Rahugana Uvacha Namo Namakarana Vigrahaya Swarupa Tuchhikrita Vigrahaya Namo Avadhuta Dvijabandhulinga Nigudha Nityanubhavaya Tubhyam. Ladies, please. Rahugana Uvacha. King Rahugana said, Namaha, my respectful obeisances. Namaha, obeisances. Karana Vigrahaya, the cause of all causes. Swarupa Tucci Krita Vigrahaya, one who has completely removed all the contradictions of the scriptures by manifesting his true self. Namaha, respectful obeisances. Avadhuta, O master of all mystic power. Dvijabandhulinga, by the characteristics of a person born in a Brahmana family but not executing the duties of a Brahmana. Nigudha, covered. Nitya Anubhavaya, to him whose eternal self-realization. Tobhyam, unto you. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. King Rahugana said, O most exalted personality, you are not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By the influence of your true self, all kinds of contradiction in the Shastras have been removed. In the dress of a friend of a Brahmana, you are hiding your transcendental blissful position. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. From the Brahma Samhita, we understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. Rishabhadev was the direct incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. His son, Bharat Maharaj, who was now acting as the Brahmana Jadabharata, had received his body from the cause of all causes. Therefore, he is addressed as Karana Vigrahaya. Text 2. O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things, and my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever, and they are cooling waters for one scorched by the heat. Purport. The conditioned soul has a body full of dirty things. Bones, blood, urine, stool, and so forth. Nonetheless, the most intelligent men in this material world think they are these contaminations of blood, bone, urine, and stool. If this is so, why can't other intelligent men be made with these ingredients which are so readily available? The entire world is going on under the bodily conception and creating a hellish condition unfit for any gentleman's living. The instructions given to King Rahugana by Jadabharata are very valuable. They are like the medicine that can save one from a snake bite. The Vedic instructions are like nectar and cool water for one suffering from scorching heat. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Before we get on with the chapter, generally what happens is, because we read verse by verse, and in each, class, there's different elements presented, different perspectives, angles, details, examples, analogies, that I don't know if it happens for you, but sometimes for me, I seem to lose the big picture of what's happening in the storyline or the pastime itself. I find very useful that at the beginning of every chapter in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada has given a very nice summary of it, of each chapter, that keeps the big picture so thoroughly front and center that it helps, then everything else connects back to that wonderful summary. So I'd like to read the summary so we know what's coming up in the chapter, and then we appreciate how that conversation between Rahugana and Jadabharata is happening. These chapters are titled very nicely. Jadabharata meets Rahugana, conversation between Jadabharata and Rahugana, conversation between Rahugana and Jadabharata, and the next chapter is called something like Jadabharata responds to Rahugana. But it's not just that. The conversation is progressive. It's building from one level of understanding to another to another. This is how Krishna consciousness is progressive, on the basis of inquiry. As one inquires from a spiritual master, the more one inquires, the more one progressively understands truth. So chapter 12, conversation between Maharaj Rahugana and Jadabharata. Because Maharaj Rahugana was still doubtful about his enlightenment, he asked the Brahmana Jadabharata to repeat his instructions and clarify ideas he could not understand. In this chapter, Maharaj Rahugana offers his respectful obeisances to Jadabharata, who was concealing his real position. The king could understand by his speech how exalted and advanced he was in spiritual knowledge. He very much regretted his offense against him. Maharaj Rahugana was bitten by the serpent of ignorance, but was cured by the nectarian words of Jadabharata. Later, because he was doubtful about the subjects discussed, he made further inquiries, one question after another. First, he wanted to be released from the offense he had committed at the lotus feet of Jadabharata. Maharaj Rahugana was somewhat unhappy at not being able to grasp Jadabharata's instructions, which were full of meaning that could not be understood by a materialistic person. Therefore, Jadabharata repeated his instructions more clearly. He said that on the surface of the globe, all living entities, moving and unmoving, but were transformations of the earth in different ways. The king was very proud of his king's body, but that body was simply another transformation of the earth. Out of his false prestige, the king was misbehaving towards the palanquin carrier, as a master toward a servant, and he was actually very unkind to other living entities. Consequently, King Rahugana was unfit to give protection to the citizens, and because he was ignorant, he was unfit to be counted among advanced philosophers. These qualities of Rahugana exist in all other human beings as well. And because of that, one becomes unfit to be a leader, or unfit to be a person in position to do anything for anyone else, and also unfit to receiving spiritual knowledge. Everything in the material world is but a transformation of the earth, although things have different names according to their transformations. Actually, the varieties are one and the same. And ultimately, all these varieties are vanquished into atoms. Nothing is permanent in this material world. A variety of things and their distinctions are simply mental concoctions. The absolute truth is beyond illusion and is manifest in three features: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ultimate realization of the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, called Vasudeva by his devotees. Unless one is blessed with the dust from the feet of a pure devotee on his head, one cannot possibly become a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jadabharata also told about his own previous birth and informed the king that by the grace of the Lord he still remembered all the incidents of his past life. Due to the activities of his past life, Jadabharata was being very cautious and was therefore assuming the characteristics of a deaf and dumb man to avoid mingling in the material world. Association with the material modes of nature is very powerful. The bad association of materialistic men can be avoided only in the association of devotees. In the association of devotees, one is given an opportunity to render devotional service in 9 different ways: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. In this way, in the association of devotees, one can pass over material association, cross over the ocean of nations, and return home back to Godhead. So, the chapter begins with Maharaj Rahugana doing 2 things. One, which is proper and must be done, is the glorification of, in this case, the spiritual master. As glorifying him with the choicest of words and the highest of praises. He's not flattering him, he's speaking the truth. And in the next verse, he speaks about himself in a very derogatory, also truthful though, derogatory way. And both these are important because they create that necessary divide between the spiritual master and the disciple. And without that divide, one will not find the necessity to seek that mercy from the spiritual master. If one thinks one is equal, or if one thinks, okay, one might say, I'm not so arrogant to think I'm equal, but if one thinks, well, I'm good enough, I think I'm well developed, then one doesn't recognize that divide. I received nicely, I've followed instructions very well, I've practiced for a few years, I'm good. Others, newcomers, they should get mercy. But Maharaj Rahugana is not like that. He's very conscientious. He's clear now. Before this, he's describing how he had forgotten his real position. The real position means fallen position. The real position of the guru is exalted. The real position of the disciple is fallen. And that is what creates the conduit or the arrangement for mercy to flow. So he first glorifies him before anything else. This is the first way. Namo Namaha. Obeisances again and again. We start our prayers to Lord Narasimhadev or Tulsi Devi, Namo Namaha, Tulasi. Krishna Prayasi. Krishna Prayasi, someone very dear to Krishna. So when we pay obeisances, we pay obeisances to the spiritual master or anything in relation to Krishna because they are in relation to Krishna. That is the reason for paying obeisances. We pay obeisances to the devotees because they are very dear to Krishna. And we say, Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Prayasi. Prayasi means she is very beloved. She is Krishna's beloved. So we offer obeisances. And he is saying, Namo Namaha Karana Vigrahaya. I'm offering my obeisances again and again because your body has been gifted by Krishna directly. How so? Because Maharaj Rishabdev was the incarnation of Krishna. And Maharaj Bharat was born to him as a son. So his body is directly gifted to him. Now one might say, well, hold on a second. In between there was a deer body, and now this deaf and dumb looking Jada Bharata. Jada means dull, like super dull. This material world is called Jada Jagat because it is inert. It has no consciousness. Prabhupada helps us. The difference between matter and spirit is the matter has no consciousness. And spirit is full of consciousness. Yet we value something inert more than we value something that has consciousness. Therefore, in the material world, people value things more than people and relationships. Because their interest is not in spirit, their interest is in matter. So things are more important. Situations, winning something is more important. Profiting something they being right is more important than the relationships with others. They place everything else first and relationships last. And the only time they will place a relationship above other things is when they want something from it. On the other hand, those who know Sat, they know truth, or they know what is eternal, they always place relationships first and everything else later, or in a secondary position. So when we look in the lives of great devotees, it's not circumstances, it's not wealth, it's not prestige, it's not their own security. In fact, that's all put later. First is the relationship with Krishna. Krishna takes the most supreme position because that relationship is valuable. He's the supreme conscious. This is the problem with the materialistic consciousness, that it gives value to inert things more than the conscious, sentient personalities. So Jada Bharata, although born in the family of a Brahmana, walking around as an inert personality, he's being glorified here as Karana Vigrahaya. Now Rahugana doesn't know yet that he is the son of Maharaj Rishabdev. Because we know the pastime, Prabhupada is telling us, because he was the son of Maharaj Bharat, who was now acting as a Brahmana Jada Bharata. He was still the son of Maharaj Rishabdev because his remembrance has been continuing from that time on. And because the remembrance is continuing, all that has changed is his external body. Just as we wear, let's say, kurta and dhoti in the morning, and for some reason we wear a shirt and a pant the next day and shorts on the third day. The who we are doesn't change, just the dress changes. So his consciousness and remembrance as the son of Rishabdev is still active. Another way to understand this is Karana Vigrahaya, translated as one whose body emanates from the Supreme Person, which means the one is spiritualized, one who has direct contact with Krishna. For a person who's not in that elevated consciousness, their sense of body emanates from a mother's tissues within the womb. And that is about how far they can understand things. And most people don't even care for the mother anymore because their appreciation for how they have received their body as a matter of sacrifice from the mother is not clear. So even mother is not that respected nowadays. But it is the mother's own body donating all the tissues, the bones, everything has been formed from the mother. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mata Dhata Pita Hamasya. I am the mother, I am the father, and I am the maintainer of all living entities. And in this case, Karana Vigrahaya is because that recognition is there. That realization is there. We don't have that realization. Into the material realm, we're not aware that Krishna is the original cause. As he says, Bija Pradapita Aham. Aham Bija Pradapita. I am the seed-giving father. But he also says, I am the mother. Mata Dhata Pitaham Asya. Pitaham Aham Asya. I am the father. And Pitamaha means grandfather. So Krishna is the grandfather, is the father, is the mother, is the maintainer. Is all of that. And for a person who is self-realized, we say that their body is directly connected to Krishna. In that sense, Karana Vigrahaya. Now this is very nice glorification, and then after every glorification, there is an offering of obeisances, Namaha. Srila Sanatana Goswami wrote a book, Krishna Leela Stava. It is a compendium, a collection of different. It's a remembrance of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And what Sanatana Goswami basically does is he had the habit of offering obeisances. So he said, I'm going to offer 108 obeisances to Krishna in literary works. So what he would do, the book, what he has done, is he would write a verse glorifying or depicting a pastime of Krishna, specifically of killing demons in Vrindavan. And after each shloka, he writes, Namami or Namaha. I'm offering my obeisances to Krishna who killed Putana, to Krishna who killed Bakasura, Aghasura, the whole list, and then Namaha. So throughout the book, he has offered 108 obeisances to Krishna. Now in the case of Sanatana Goswami, whether he writes Namaha or he offers prostrated obeisances, it's the same. That cannot be said for ordinary persons. When they say Namaha, they don't mean that. What is spoken may not be felt. So Sanatana Goswami, Namaha, the whole Krishna Leela Stava book is full of Namaha, offering of obeisances. Now for some persons who may be new or trying to get familiar with Krishna consciousness, what is the purpose of offering obeisances? What is the reason one offers obeisance? One reason is it's the proper way of showing respect. In the modern exchanges, there is hardly respect. It's more like, what's up? It sounds challenging. When I first came to this country, someone said, what's up? And I got scared, like I had done something wrong. Because I only remember parents asking, what's up? What have you done? I said, what's up? I don't know. I'm sorry. Should I say I'm sorry? Later realized that that's the way of saying, how are you? Or how everything else. But the proper way is to offer respect. So respect means the best way to offer respect is an indication of how may I serve you. That's what respect means. We place others higher than ourselves. We consider them on a higher position. Whoever it is, in that exchange, we consider them on a higher position than ourselves. So we ask them, how may I serve you? In the Vedic style, it is namami or obeisances that we offer. One, it's from a physical expression, it's an offering of respect. On the more subtler side, it is a way of submitting ourselves to being ready for service, to carrying out the order of the person or persons we are offering our obeisances to. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had this habit that when his disciples would offer respects to him, obeisances or some glorification, he would respond back with dasoham, dasosmi, that I am your servant, I am your servant. Because each devotee is trying to be the servant of another devotee. Therefore we address each other as Prabhu. Prabhu means your master and I am servant. So when he says Namo Namaha, he is opening himself for rendering service. He is opening himself for receiving instruction. Without readiness for receiving instruction, nothing valuable happens in life. So Namo Namaha, that's why obeisances and respects are offered. And then he calls him Swarupa Tuchhikrita Vigrahaya, who has completely removed all the contradictions of the scripture by manifesting his true self. Contradictions of scripture, because scripture, Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita, that the Vedas deal with topics primarily within the three modes of nature. Meaning, the majority of the Vedic knowledge is dealing with topics within the three modes of nature. Why? Because that's where the people are. The conditioned human being is within the three modes of nature, if we haven't noticed. So the Vedas begin there, and the primary focus or majority of the Vedic focus is the three modes of nature and how to transcend. And for those who have transcended, they have a different scripture. And I'll explain. The word scripture or shastra is meant to discipline. It is to restrict and direct the conditioned personalities. Because without direction and without restriction, the conditioned personality will be extremely whimsical. Like we read in the previous verses, the mind is such a monkey, is a dacoit, can do anything. One day this, one day that. And not even one day, that would be really nice if we can control a mind for a day. One moment this, another moment that. Like that. So scripture is just to restrict such behavior and guide towards a higher direction, to elevate. But one who's already elevated, they don't need restriction anymore. So they're called nirgranthi. Scripture is also called grantha. Grantha means to tie or knot. So they're called nirgranthi. They're not necessarily to be tied by the restrictions of Scripture. For them, they have a different place where, or a different realm of experiencing taste. That is like the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam specifically says, Paramo nirmatsaranam sada. The scripture is meant for those persons who are beyond envy. And it says, Pibata Bhagavata Rasamalayam. This Bhagavatam is meant to be drunk by those great personalities. Even they relish Bhagavatam. So although they are nirgrantha, it's not meant for restricting them or teaching them something. It is meant for their relish, for their relishing of Krishna's pastimes. When we read Bhagavatam, we take lessons from it. What to do, what not to do, the mistakes some great personalities or mistakes some persons have made, so that we don't have to repeat the same mistakes. Or when we are repeating the same mistakes, we see a pattern like, oh, this is how to get purified. But the greatly exalted personalities, they're not hearing Bhagavatam for learning something. They're hearing Bhagavatam or discussing Bhagavatam for relishing the presence of Krishna. So, scripture, back to the scripture, because it deals with topics within the modes of nature, Krishna described Nistraigunya Bhava Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. So there are many contradictions. And a person who doesn't understand scripture properly will see so many things that are like, what? You guys speak from both sides of your mouth. You should not touch stool at all. As soon as you come in contact with stool, you should take a bath. Go right ahead and pick up cow dung and smear all over the place. Even the deity is okay. Like, what? What are you talking? Isn't that stool of an animal? Yes, cow is okay. Oh, there are some exceptions. So how do you know? Or the Brahmana does this, the Shudra does that. A Brahmana cannot do what Shudra does, a Shudra should not do what a Brahmana does. A Shudra cannot even do what a Brahmana should do. Or you can do something on this day, you cannot do something on that day. And then they say for pure devotees, none of these rules they don't manifest. Sometimes, in this, one of the contradictions for that matter, if you read second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first few chapters, Shukadeva Goswami is narrating to Parikshit Maharaj that many people will say, many learned persons will say, you should pray to Goddess Saraswati for knowledge, Uma for a beautiful wife, Lord Shiva for a good-looking husband, such and such demigod for this to such and that for that. And the great devotees say that all these forms of the demigods are considered ghora rupa. They're like ghastly forms. We shouldn't completely reject them. So I say, one hand you're saying this, on the other hand you're saying that. And unless one is self-realized, these contradictions don't get resolved. Because when the soul is fully realized, they don't see contradictions anymore. They don't manifest contradictions anymore either. Because their entire life is meant for serving Krishna. There are no other contradictions. To think of contradiction in another way is that there are multiple objectives to life. This objective and that objective. Sometimes those objectives are quite distinct from each other. Sometimes even contradictory to each other. For a person who's self-realized, there are no multiple or dichotomous goals or aspirations. They're all to serve Krishna. I hope to narrate this pastime of Prabhupada properly. If you know it better, please say it. There was a situation when Srila Prabhupada was sitting on a stage, a big asana, and he had given this lecture. And at the end of it, someone stood up and he contradicted Srila Prabhupada. He was going to, so he said, Swamiji, there are so many things to be done in life. There's so many important considerations. But for such a long time, all you have been saying is serve Krishna, do this for Krishna. And I see you, all you're doing is serving Krishna, or doing this, as if there was something wrong. And so he just went on and on and on and on, telling Prabhupada how Prabhupada had only this single focus, and it seemed too restricting. That was his point. You were only talking of Krishna, serving Krishna, everything for Krishna, like that. And when he finished, he was hoping Prabhupada would offer a counter-argument. Prabhupada said, thank you very much. Or like a compliment. that yes, you've understood that for us everything is Krishna like that. So within his disapproval, Prabhupada took it as great acceptance. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing it. That Krishna is the centermost entity for all of us. So there are no contradictions. Everything is done for Krishna's pleasure. Whatever it is. Otherwise, for most persons, it looks like contradiction. They do some puja, then they go and eat lavish food. Whoa, what's that? I thought you should live simply. But for Krishna's devotees, everything that's offered to Krishna is eaten. So that's not contradictory. Prabhupada would sit on a big asan. One time there was someone who said, "Why are you sitting on this big seat? You drive in this fancy limos." And Prabhupada said, "That is because you have an envious mind." In fact, it says, the scripture says that the spiritual master must be served as good as God. In fact, this is not good enough. This is not good enough. They should have a golden chariot. Even that would not be good enough. For one who's not serving Krishna, then these are all contradictions. So, Swarupa Tucci Krita Vigrahaya. No contradictions at all. Everything is meant for Krishna's service. Namo Avaduta. Avaduta is the master of all mystic power. And then he says, Dvijabandhu Linga. Dvijabandhu Linga means form, body. Dvijabandhu Linga. Dvijabandhu is not a good title. Dvija is a good title. Dvija means Brahmana, twice born. Dvijabandhu means relatives of or friends of the Brahmanas who really only are Brahmanas by some indication but not by quality. It's like a drama actor putting a thread on and, oh, Brahmana, and then they'll put some marking on the face. Swaha, Swaha, oh, this is Brahmana. This is not Brahman. Brahman by quality. And persons who don't have those qualities, they're called Dvijabandhu. Like Shamika Rishi's son, Shringi, who cursed Maharaj Parikshit. He's called Dvijabandhu. He didn't have the right qualities, that he cursed a pure devotee. He couldn't recognize. This is a very exalted person. He thought, Kshatriya, lower than Brahmanas. How dare you offend? Hey, Brahmana, I curse you to die. It's like trying to kill a mosquito with a cannonball. It's not necessary. But Dvijabandhu, because he has the power, he used it without knowing the right application for such power. He says Dvijabandhu Linga, that although you're a great personality, as described in the previous two lines, you're hiding as a Dvijabandhu. You're deceiving people. Not in a bad way. The deception is not to cheat others. The deception is to hide his self-realized position. A great person will hide their true exalted nature. And a neophyte will exhibit nothing to everyone like anything. There's hardly anything inside, but that's exhibited like, out there all the time. I'm advanced, I'm like this. Or if not directly, somehow the other. But it's hidden, it's internal. Nigudha. Nigudha means hiding. And he's used this word Nigudha almost 5 times now. Every time he speaks, he uses the word Nigudha. And then he says, Nitya Anubhavaya. Nitya Anubhavaya means to him whose eternal self-realization. Nigudha Nitya Anubhavaya. His self-realized position, he has kept it hidden. This is the quality of a great person, that they don't profess about themselves. they keep it hidden because it's not meant for anybody and everybody, and they won't understand. Only in the presence of qualified persons, qualified means inquisitive, eager to know, to them their truth about themselves is revealed. Well, this is good practice for devotees too. That it should be nature, right? It should be natural for us. Otherwise, we're eager to exhibit our very little Krishna consciousness. The exhibition, it's not exhibition, but by expressing and parasparam, bodhayanta parasparam. It's important to express realizations to each other for refinement of those realizations. Not for walking out there and exhibiting to people how learned we are. And then now he speaks about himself. He says, Jwara, he said, I have a fever. What is that? And Amaya, I have a disease. Artasya, Artha, a person in distress. He says, Agadam Sat Nidaghadasya. So now he's talking about himself. O best of the Brahmanas, my body is filled with dirty things. Your body is emanated from the personality of Godhead. My body is filled with dirty things. And my vision has been bitten by the serpent of pride. Pride makes a person blind. This is true. So his analogy is perfect. Pride covers the consciousness in such a way that it creates a blindness. And the blindness is, I am great, everyone else is smaller or inferior to me. This is what the blindness looks like. And when the blindness is cured, I am very small, and Krishna and Krishna's devotees and everyone else is better. In our Guru Vandana song, Narottam Das Thakur very specifically speaks about this. That the lotus feet of the spiritual master has the potency to remove that blindness. The blindness that afflicts the conditioned soul, that of pride. I am very great. Has nothing but very great. Prabhupada used the phrase that even a pauper is proud of his penny. It's an English, it's a British, I guess, what's called proverb. He may have very little things, but he's very proud of it. Prabhupada narrates a pastime. Once when he was a young boy, he was traveling by train on the platform. He'd seen a beggar, and he had unwrapped his, I think it was a jute or tarp, some cloth, and there were some twigs that he had collected, and he was selling those twigs. Twigs have no value, you can get them anywhere. And someone touched a twig or picked one, and he was fighting, this is mine, this is mine. It's twig, it has no value. But even he is very proud and arrogant about that he has this possession. So this serpent that has bitten us is the serpent of pride. And he says, due to my material conceptions, I am diseased. My body is full of garbage, blood, stool, urine, pus, bone, flesh. If it's opened, it's smelly. By just the material design, anything that's emanating from our body is smelly. Our breath is smelly. Sweat, smelly. Stool, no need to even discuss. Everything is just smelly, it's stinky. Therefore, we have to do things just so that we can stay in public and not be stoned or something. But it's not the case with great personalities. He's talking about his body being very different. And one is proud. Oh, my body, I'm more smelly than you are. Smellier than you are. Pride. So the body is full of dirty things, and the mind is full of dirty things too. Ishwaroham aham bhogi. Siddhoham balavan sukhi. This is Krishna describes the demonic mentality in the Bhagavad Gita. Ishwaroham, I am the controller. Aham bhogi, naturally, I am the enjoyer. Instead of aham yogi, it's aham bhogi. Siddhoham, I am perfect. Balavan, I am very strong. Sukhi, I am very happy. Ho, I am so good. Krishna says this is the formula for disaster. This is the contamination in the mind. And so Jadabharata, Maharaj Rahugana is being honest. This is how I'm suffering. What's the medicine? Your nectarian instructions are the proper medicine for one suffering from such a fever. When there is fever means it's an indication of inflammation somewhere. Something is inflamed. The fever, the fever of the conditioned soul is that his false ego is inflamed like anything. I am the greatest. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect. I am very good. I am blessing to this world. And the nectarian words of the spiritual master cut down that fever and brings the person back to senses, because in fever one becomes delirious. When high fever is there, one becomes delirious. You want to hear a funny story Prabhupada narrates about fever? There was a lady who was having fever. Her maid servant, also had fever. So the doctor was called. So the doctor checked the mistress's fever and told her, you have something like 99 degrees fever. And he checked the maid servant and said, oh, she has 102 fever. So the mistress was in distress. What? I am the master's wife. How can she have more fever than me? My temperature should be higher. I should have 103. How can she be greater than me? Well, Prabhupada said, foolish woman didn't realize that she is in a healthier condition than the maidservant. But for her, 102 was greater than 99. And that was uncomfortable. How can she be more than me? So these nectarian words are the proper medicine. Nectarian words means instructions. These instructions cut down the fever. We heard in yesterday's verses, Guru Hare Charana Upasana. Those instructions, they remove this fever, this false ego which is inflamed, and bring it to the real condition. Oh, I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm insignificant. Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays, Gurudev, Kripa Bindu Diya, Koroe Dase. Give me a little drop of your mercy so I can know that I'm a servant of Krishna. Yogyata Vichare. When I consider what is my qualification, Kichu Nahi Pai, I don't find anything. Tomara Karuna Sara. Everything is nothing but, I'm but made of your mercy. This is when the fever is gone. Otherwise it's Ishwaroham aham bhogi, Siddhoham balavan sukhi. Here I come. And they are the cooling waters for one scorched by the heat. When one is suffering from heat, one becomes thirsty, the tongue is parched. And until one receives cooling waters, one doesn't feel satisfied or happy. So when the Guru's instructions, although sometimes they seem difficult, it is by which, when the fever comes down, one feels happy. One feels alive, actually. Because in fever one cannot do anything. And one feels happy, one feels sheltered and feels revived and healthy. This is why Guru's instructions are so important, and they're glorified like anything. And they said that Eve Jash Gushuk Tribhuvana. The glory of the spiritual master is sung throughout the three worlds for this reason. Adhama Janara Bandhu. Because the spiritual master makes himself very dear to, and he becomes very dear to Adhama, the fallen persons. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu, that he is the ocean of mercy. So there's no limit to how much merciful the spiritual master can be. There's no limit. We can test it, and we do. And we see that is unlimited ocean of mercy. And he has the potency invested in him by Krishna, the personality of Godhead, to remove the inflammation of the false ego that no one else can do. No other demigod can do. The spiritual master can do. So throughout the three worlds he is glorified. So Rahugana is expressing these are words of apology and glorification together, that I made a big mistake. And he's going to speak more. And then I say, I don't understand what you said. Can you explain more, please? Okay. Sorry, we're out of time. We have time for one question and we'll... What is your name, Prabhu? Ankur. Okay, Hare Krishna. Welcome to the temple. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you for welcoming me. It's my fortune to have darshan of Kishore Kishori and hear from you. It was a beautiful class, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
I have one question. When you're reading the summary, it talks about how our association with the material modes of nature contaminates us. Mm-hmm. And that's why Jad Bharat decided not to associate with anybody and behave like a dull man.
Correct.
So the question came to my mind, okay, if we don't associate with anybody, I guess even then the modes of material nature are so powerful, they can entangle us. So just not associating with people of the world, is that sufficient not to be entangled or being affected by the modes of nature?
In Jada Bharata's case, because he is completely pure, he can remain aloof and not be contaminated. For a conditioned person, it's not like somehow they get contaminated. They are contaminated. It's just a matter of degree, how much. We are contaminated. So if we say, oh, I'm going to stay away and not associate with anybody, okay, we may not get further contaminated, but what about the contamination that's already there? That contamination will take us back right into associating with others. So our process is decontamination. And after decontamination, our process is, by Lord Chaitanya's order, to be in the presence of others to also benefit them. This is not a selfish mission. I got cleared, to hell with others. That's not the entry for... that's not the path that Lord Chaitanya gave us. He'll be very disappointed that if we didn't do something for others after receiving so much. So we stay there, we stay within the public, but we don't take their conceptions of life. We give up the new conceptions to them. And for that we need to be connected to the Guru Parampara strongly, otherwise our fever will come back again. Yeah? Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you Madhavendra Puri Prabhu for being flexible with the schedule.